All right, let's try example 2 here. Factoring x squared plus bx plus c. So again, leading coefficients of 1 here. So this one we see a negative x squared minus 6x minus 5. And anytime that leading one is negative, we like to turn that into a positive by factoring out a negative 1. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull a negative out of this thing. Okay, so we're going to pull a negative factor, a negative 1 factor out of each term. So if you think negative 1 times what is going to be x squared? Well, it's just going to be x squared. Negative 1 times what is negative 6x? So that's positive 6x. And then negative 1 times what is negative 5? Well, that's positive 5. So you can see by pulling a negative out of that term, everything just switches signs. And now we have a leading coefficient, which is positive, which is kind of the way we want to approach these factoring problems. Okay? So now that negative needs to stay out front there. But then we're going to try and factor what was left even another time. Okay, so here we go. Remember the foiling, reverse foiling, it says the first two things in each factor. The first need to multiply to get x squared. So we know it's going to be x and x. Okay. And then the last need to multiply together to get 5. So the only options there are 5 and 1. Okay, so we can put a 1 here and a 5 here. Okay. Now, the last sign being positive, because this is a positive 5, the only way you multiply and get positive numbers is if you take a negative times a negative, you get a positive. Or if you take a positive times a positive, you'll get a positive, right? So in order for us to make positive 5, these two things in here in our factors have to have the same sign. So they have to be both positive or both negative. And if you look to the middle, it'll actually tell you what they need to be. So the last one's positive, the middle one kind of gives you what you're supposed to have. So in this case, they're both going to be positive. On our last example, it was negative. In that case, we needed one of each. Okay, so then the negative needs to be put in the right spot, okay, so that the middle term gets made correctly, you get the right amount. So here's kind of the sign rules for factoring, right? The sign rules. Okay, if the last sign is positive, you know your factors are going to be positive with a positive, or they're going to be negative with a negative. And if your last sign is negative, then you know you're going to have a plus and a minus. So one factor is going to be positive, one factor is going to be negative. Okay, but here is the factorization. Then if we would to take all three of those things, multiply them back together in any order, we actually end up getting right back to where we started.